Okay, guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating in this webinar. I decided to make some list of webinars in this time where we are not able to do our job as we are used to, and we are not able to go outside to do such a meetings outside, but we are at home. Now it might be a good time to accept this as an opportunity to rethink what are our goals, what we would like to achieve, and how to do that, to rethink many other things that we need, that will need to improve our business and life after this finish. We know that it will be finished in 1 or 2 or 3 months. I hope not 3 and more. But for sure, some results will last more than this immediate danger lasts. But at this time, what we can do, we are at home, we have more time, we can rethink all the things we can try to improve ourselves and to think what we would like to improve in our lives and in our business. As one of the very big achievers in our business said sometime and written somewhere, I hope you see it, your growth will actually come before the growth of your business. So if we would like to improve our life, to improve our business, we would have at first to improve ourselves. So in that manner, I hope you see, you all see what is written in the screen.
Yes, we do.
Yes, okay. Then in that manner, we would like to change something in our lives. If we would like to improve anything in our business or life, we have to change something. We will have to do the change. But usually we are connected with our habits, and it's not easy to leave our old habits. Somehow the people connect with their even bad habits. But if we would like to improve something, we will have to change it. That's why I would like for this session to speak with one of the respectable instructors, the man I was happy to meet some time ago in United States, the man that is over 30 years in real estate business, having 2 brokerages in his country and his city, with over 140 agents working for this business. This man is business not only in real estate, he has other businesses, and he's a successful coach, including the instructor in Keller Williams franchise, which pay very much of attention to education and to improving skills of the people as to improve the business at all. So I invite Darren Kittleson to join us. I asked him to do a free webinar to all the people in Balkan and other countries in the world, all the people that are interested to do some change in their life, and to speak, to suggest us what should we do to improve the things in our life and to be more close to the success, to our targets in life. So Darren, please, it's your stage. Tell us something about changing the habits that we are very often grab and hug closely, even if they are not good.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, and good evening to many of you. And thanks for being here. You know, when Shlavisa and I started talking about the topic, about 3 weeks ago, here where I live in the United States, and I'm about 2 hours north of Chicago, so right in the middle of the country, in the northern side, we were asked to, basically the word was safer at home. And so it was to shut non-essential businesses down so that we could flatten the curve of the infection rate of COVID-19. And this time of year in the market that I have my real estate brokerages in, this is what we call our spring market. It's when we do, 70% of our business in about this 4-month window, and it was just starting to happen. I mean, the snow was melting, and buyers were starting to come out, and it's the time, not that there's ever a good time for a pandemic like this. However, the timing was really poor from a business perspective for our businesses. And so I met with my leaders, and I just said, what can we do during this time, because we don't know how long it'll be, to make certain that we're keeping our estate agents still improving themselves, actually working in their businesses as such that when we come out on the other side, they can continue to do business. And that's kind of where this began, is this conversation I'd like to have with you for a few minutes this evening. And that was really around what is it that we can do from a leadership perspective to keep our people focused on the right things now that their lives are completely upside down. And when I mean that, our schools closed permanently until probably the fall of this year. So parents who have children that were off to school so they could work are back in their houses, and they have to do homeschooling. And so there's that in their mix as well. So that's where this began. And so on 3 weeks ago, we started a conversation every day at 9 a.m. in this format with Zoom as our way to communicate with our agents around really kind of mindset. What are the habits? What are the right things we should be doing in spite of everything else that's happening? And I just want to share that with you today. So I'm going to share my screen. Just a couple slides I want to go through. And so let me get that set. Ideally, this is going to work because, well, it worked the last time. And hopefully you're seeing just a screen that says pivot, making the most out of isolation for a better you. Is that what you see there, Slavisha?
Yes, that's it.
Perfect, awesome. So so that's really what I wanted to just share with you, is that idea during this time. So really what it is I said I'd break it down to kind of 5 key habits that we're going to look at in this conversation that could serve us moving forward. Number 1 would be internal habits. Like, what are we doing from an internal perspective for us? And that could be mental, that could be internal from a physical perspective. Then we got external habits, like outside, what others will see, our social and people habits. And I think what's interesting around that one is that for many of us as estate agents or
excuse me,
managers,
Darren.
yes,
Excuse me, Darren. Please mute all. Mute all.
Okay, I can do that. I believe. There we go. I think we have everyone muted now. So yes. All right. And then it's also social and people habits. And here's the thing around that one. I think from a perspective of our conversations, I think a lot of us enjoy being with people and we enjoy having conversations with people. And now that we're in isolation, as we're following the guidelines from our governments, it's a challenge. And so what are the habits we could continue to grow on during this time so that we don't feel so isolated? Then it's financial, and that's a tough conversation, I think, for many people. And I know in other countries you may be in a different position. Many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, they didn't have reserved money, and so when people let go from jobs, when restaurants are closed, all these things happen, there's a lot of financial impacts that there might be. And so we're going to talk a little bit about financial habits. And then finally, our physical health, because ultimately through this time, the goal would be that we would all stay healthy so that we can be the best for our families first, and then for our clients and customers. So that's really where this is coming from as we look at this conversation. So I want to do just a little assessment. And so this is just for you. I just want to get a sense from you of where things might stand right now from a 7 kind of key areas of our lives. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm just going to ask that you give yourself a rating on these 7 areas, with 1 being I'm nowhere near where I would desire to be, like, it's not good, and 10 being everything is like the best it could possibly be in that area. So that's what that's what we're going to ask you to take a look at, is that. And I'm going to mute everybody again, just because we got a couple folks that might still have their microphones unmuted. So there we go. I think that took care of us. Yeah. So just again, scale of 1 to 10. So first question is, where are you in your physical health? I think that's first and foremost as we kind of look at what's in front of us right now. Like physically, how am I? Am I in great shape? Am I? Could I do something about it? Are there some things that I need to really be concerned about so that I can stay healthy and good for my family and my clients and customers? Second is your financial health. Financial health. So where do you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 there? With again, 10 being, you know, it's all set. It's where I desire to be in life, and 1 being not at all where it needs to be. So just a 1 to 10. By the way, a 7 typically isn't a good number because that's kind of squishy in between. So if you're giving yourself 7s, you might want to choose something either higher or lower. Relational health, like your relationships with people, key relationships. That could be spouse, that could be family members, it could be co-workers. Would you rate yourself there? The fourth area would be in your spiritual health. In your spiritual life, where would you give yourself a rating on that? That itself. And then the next one is going to be from a job health. Now, 5 and 6 might seem similar, yet they are different. So I want to make sure we've got a distinction in how we're rating ourselves here. Job health would be in the day-to-day tasks that you do to get the job accomplished. So if you're an estate agent, you know, maybe a job health activity would be, what am I doing to understand the market so that I can give good advice? What am I doing in lead generation so that I'm building my business and building relationships? Versus business health would be, how am I doing managing my money coming in against the expenses going out in my business? Do I spend time on a regular basis thinking about what it looks like 6 months from now, 12 months from now, from a business plan perspective? That would be business health. Job health is the actual activities, if that makes sense. And then the final one is your personal life and key relationships. Those are like the ones that are the closest to you. So relational health is in probably a little more distant. Key is the people that, you know, you see every day. How do you rate yourself there? So again, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, you know, you're really at the spot you would desire to be, and 1 meaning there's a lot to do. Just give yourself a rating in each one of these, because this is going to kind of set up the rest of our conversation through this meeting tonight. So I'm just going to give you a moment to do that. Again, you're not going to share it with anybody. This is just yours. And so now here's what I'd like you to do. If you've got 1 or 2 areas that you, that of those 7 that you maybe rated yourself lower and you'd like to bring focus to, I think that becomes a good context for the rest of this conversation. So as an example, maybe I rated my financial health a 3. You know, and that was one of my lowest. So that may be the one area that you were going to need to give some time and attention to if you really want to improve it, which I would consider most of us would. And maybe there's one other, maybe it's key relationships. So this, and maybe there's only one, but just we're going to balance of our conversation is going to be around those 2 areas, 1 or 2 areas as you look at it. So I'm just going to ask you to give thought to that. And maybe as you wrote it down, you might write the name next to it and circle it, that type of thing. And so as I lay out these 5 areas we're going to talk about, with keeping in mind where you rated yourselves on those 7 areas, what might be a context, meaning that it would make sense to have a relationship between those areas you want to improve and this idea about habits I could build. And the first area is in our internal health, right? So our habits. Now, internal is, I always think about it this way, it's what others can't see. What others can't see, internal, right? So one of the habits that I was introduced to a number of years ago, and I've been working on this now for 6 years, is a habit about meditation or mindfulness. And I think in this time in our history in the world, if there's ever a time that this could become very helpful for a lot of us, it's now. Now, let me talk a little bit about meditation. It could be prayer as well, because to me, in my mind, that's similar. It's a similar activity, and that's a calming and of your mind, if you will, and an asking for what you want to have allowed into your life. Um, Let me just give you a little story around why I put meditation first. About 7 years ago, we were coming out of the recession here in the United States, or as the rest of the world calls it, the crisis, which it was. And I'll be honest, I lost almost everything in financially at that time. I had a construction company with a lot of debt when housing stopped. I had business partners that hadn't run things well. I was distracted, so not focused on things, and literally was reduced to almost nothing. And I was probably at my lowest spot in my life at that point. And I had a coach that I was working with, and I was complaining to him in my coaching call that day that every day I would get emotionally hooked into something that happened, like, worked up, like anxious. And I said, I really I'd love to figure out how to get that not to happen. And he said this, and these were his words. He said, how would you like to move through life being Jesus-like? I'm like, what? He goes, how would you like to go through every day like you're coated in Teflon coating, so that whatever came at you just slid off and didn't have any emotional impact for you? And I said, well, who wouldn't want that, right? I mean, wouldn't that make things great if that's how we could operate? And so he introduced me to meditation, and actually introduced me to a process that started at 30 minutes a day of an audio that I listened to. And now I'm doing an hour to an hour and a half a day, because it's a progression. It's an 8-year progression. So I'm 7 years into it. As I move through different sets of meditations, and I go to a different spot. And almost immediately, what I started noticing is that I wasn't getting as emotionally hooked or worked up, or my blood pressure wasn't going up as often throughout the day as it was when I didn't have that. And as I've progressed through this now, it feels like if I don't get my meditation time in, there's something missing in my day. So it really has become a habit. And what I've chosen to do, and this is just because it works in my schedule, I start my day with that. So the very first thing I do when I get up in the morning is that meditation. That's part of my morning ritual. Then it really sets my mind at the right spot for the rest of the day. So whether it's prayer, meditation, mindfulness might be another way it's heard. I just can't say enough about that from an internal health perspective. The other piece of it, and I think this is kind of a side benefit from it, is it just makes me better for the people I work with and I'm around, the people I love. So I think, and they'll tell you this, I'm a very different person now than I was 7 years ago. And if there's no other reason for this, that one would be a great one. And so the other cool thing is there's now a lot of apps, like free, things you can download that are really good, that you can get a hold of just to start that process. So what I shared mine, I'm happy to share with anyone who wants it. And yet there's a lot of other great stuff as well. It's just something along that way. Second thing, and I heard about this for years, as Slavisa mentioned, I've been in this real estate sales business since I was 24 years old, so it's 31 years. Early on, I heard about affirmations, and people were like, yeah, you have to do affirmations. And I'm going, that's that kind of new age, kind of out there stuff. I'm focused on selling houses. And I've learned the hard way that there's so much power in that activity. And that's similar to meditation, and yet it's somewhat different. Years ago, I heard a speaker say that the mind, our brains, doesn't know the difference between truth or fiction. It only knows what we tell it. And so if you're telling it great stuff, over time, it'll believe that great stuff is who you are. If you're telling it poor stuff, it'll do the same. And so I grew up on a farm. I grew up milking cows on a dairy farm. And so that resonates for me, planting a seed, right? So if I plant a great seed in my mind, the mind just makes it grow, and there's great results. If I plant bad seeds, it's bad stuff that comes up, and I get bad results. And so that's really where I talk about positive affirmations being such a key piece. Now, here's the thing to remember. Whether you think you're giving yourself affirmations or not, you are all day long. In fact, Many of us do this subconsciously. We don't even have to think about it. And too often they are negative. So things like, well, if you, well, I had one happen just a few minutes ago. You witnessed that when I had the microphone was my issue, where I was the one not hearing Slavisa as we were trying to get this started. And I went to a negative affirmation. I'm like, you idiot! How come you didn't double check that before you went live with this? And so you idiot, by the way, is an affirmation. If my brain doesn't know the difference between truth or fiction, it only knows what I tell it. If I keep telling it I'm an idiot, it'll start giving me that result. And that's not what I desire. So there's really 4 key rules to really good affirmations. And I want to share these with you. Number 1, they have to be positive. So positive, positive, positive. And knowing that most of us have been programmed based on our experiences in our lives to go to negative, this takes work. The second rule of the P's is that it has to be purposeful. So when you say an affirmation, like your brain has to get, oh yeah, I understand what that does, what that is. It's not something that it can't understand. Number 3, it has to be powerful. Powerful, like when you say it, it kind of gets you excited. And then the 4th P is that it has to be present tense. Now that's the tough one. And this is one as I work with people that I hear over and over again that they probably fall down with the most. And that is that we will say things like, I will take 10 listings this month. I will take, or I will, or I hope to, or those are not present tense. I am is probably the 2 most powerful words you can use as you're creating affirmations for yourself. I am taking 10 listings this month. I am an amazing real estate agent. I am that. Now, here's the challenge in that for many of us. Logically, when we say I am something and I know that I'm not yet, it becomes it creates a little bit of a dissonance in our logic. And yet, here's the key. When we say it over and over and over and over again, the brain then closes the gap of that disconnect, and it just starts giving you activities that are congruent with what you say you are. I don't know if that makes sense, and yet it really works. So positive, purposeful, present tense, and powerful are the real keys to those affirmations. Now, and they can be short. They can, there can be 1 a day that you say over and over again, or it could be 20. There's no rule that way, other than it's about consistency and it's feeding your brain those thoughts so that it starts growing those behaviors so that you start getting the results that you desire. And then the last one, and this is an interesting one, especially right now with our concern around health. I think hydration is a big internal habit, hydration. You maybe saw, I mean, this is water. This is what I go through a number of these each day because that's such a key piece. Now, what's interesting around that is how hydration is being proved to impact brain function. Or let me flip that, dehydration impacts brain function. And there's just a couple things from some of the studies that are being done around that. Number 1, dehydration, not consuming enough water affects mood. So that's the first one, is like, if I'm not in a great mood, I'm not good for people. And the second one is it can reduce cognitive and motor skills. So cognitive being how we're thinking. So if I'm dehydrated, my thinking isn't as clear as it could be. And then motor skills are, what I do with my hands, how I walk. I know as I get older, I'm very conscious about my motor skills because, I don't want to fall and break anything because that takes long to heal. So that's the second reason. And then the other one is it makes you more sensitive to pain. So studies are showing us that when we're dehydrated, our sensitivity towards pain is greater. And then the last one is this, it affects memory. And I'll jokingly, I'll just talk about the fact that as I get older, I'm always very conscious of that. I now have a capture tool for everything I do through my day. It sits right here to the left of me at my desk. It goes with me when I walk out of my office and travel during normal times. I capture everything there because I do struggle somewhat with it. And so if I can help that by staying hydrated, why not? So that's the other piece. Now, so that's the first one, is internal. So if we go back and kind of think about that from an internal perspective, So I go back just one slide to these ideas of meditation, positive affirmations, and hydration. If you look at where you scored yourself on those 7 areas as we began today, is there something you might choose to begin to do as we create a habit during this time, using any of these or some other method to help improve those numbers? And that's really what I wanted to bring to us today from that challenge standpoint around those areas. The second area is around our external habits, right? So big one is this, and I believe that this may be true for many of you as well. It is here for us in the U.S. Our term in the state that I live in is safer at home. They're encouraging us only to leave our houses for essential things like groceries and to go to pharmacy. No other reason to do that. They want everyone in their homes. And so what that means is we've moved our businesses out of our offices and into our homes. So we talk about external habits. We've been very sensitive around this to say, okay, how can we create an environment that can take care of what's happening at home and also allow us to do something in our business or on our business each and every day so that we can keep it moving forward, even though we have a lot of other restrictions. So the first one is your workspace. You know, if you found yourself at home, do you have a dedicated space that you've created specific to work? And one of my agents shared a really neat picture with me 2 weeks ago, actually. And she took a little closet that they had in their house, and she found a table that would fit just in that space. So it's got, you know, a wall here and a wall in front of her, and she's got her work space there. Now, behind her to the right is a window, and she said that was important, so she had natural light. Yet she's got young children, and she said, my kids know that when mom is at that spot, that mom is working. And so she just created a little space that supports her for work. Now, what she's been doing on those 3 walls is putting up visual cues about what it is that she's working for. So the goals that she has financially for herself and her family, the dreams that they have for things that the money that the business could provide to her could do, those types of things. And then she says, when I'm in that space, that's my work focus. And when I leave it, then my kids know that it's family. That's the first one, is the actual physical space. Second one is your work preparedness. So, you know, are you planning your day even though you're working from home or working from a remote location the night before? Before your day ends, do you have your list of what you'd like to accomplish the next day, such that when you go to that space, it's there for you? And then finally, and this is a big one, I think, is your breaks during the day, because many of us, you know, once we get settled in, you might find you go hours on end sitting at your desk, making phone calls to people or working on things in your business. One of the little tricks I've discovered is I set an alarm on my mobile phone for every at 50 minutes past every hour. So at 9:50, at 10:50, at 11:50, that alarm goes off, and that reminds me to get up and move. So every 50 minutes, 50, I'm being reminded to get up and move, so that throughout the day I'm getting some activity in, even though I'm here at home. And I just thought I'd share that with you because I think that's important as well, because it goes back to the physical parts of this. The last thing, and just from a physical piece too, I've discovered ways to stay moving even though I'm in a relatively small space, and yoga is one of the activities or practices. Stretching is the other one, and there's some really great resources online you can find for that. So that's the external. So if you think about, you know, where you graded yourself in any of those 7 areas we started with, if you're looking at 1 or 2 that you'd like to improve the numbers on, is there something from an external habit you could create for yourself beginning today while we're here in isolation that would serve you to, and in doing so then would increase that number if we were all to get together, you know, probably 3 months from now, and we'd have the same conversation. That's the goal. And then the third area was about our social and people habits. Here's what's really interesting during this time, and I don't know if you're experiencing it where you're at in the world, using technologies like we've got today with mobile and WhatsApp and some of those applications. You know, we've got the ability to actually do a fair amount of interaction, yet I recognize, and I'll just say it's not the same. as, you know, giving a parent or that, you know, that you can't be in a physical space with a hug, or you know, shaking hands with somebody, or whatever the habits we had in the past were. And so what do we do now to keep those in place? And here's the one thing that we discovered: it's communication. So the more we can communicate voice to voice with people, at least, or ideally even video and voice to video and voice, the better I think people will be through this time. One of the focused areas we're doing with all of our agents is we're encouraging them to do video calls or phone calls to everybody in their contact record database. And the conversation is simply this: how are you? Is there anything I can do to help you? That's what they're doing in their business right now, is calling those people and saying, how are you? And is there anything I can do to help you? Here's the thing I think we have to remember as estate agents: we're connectors. We help people connect with services they need. We help them connect with all kinds of things in communities when they move in. And this is a chance for us to continue to be connectors. Now, what we're discovering as our agents are making those calls is the conversations are turning to real estate at times. And in many cases, it's that the person they're speaking with does have a need, and they're curious as to what the market is doing and whether they could still help them during this time. So they are finding business, even though that's not the purpose of the call. So that's the first thing, is communication. The second one around that, though, is we're actually hearing great stories of our agents teaching. A lot of times it's more elderly people in their database how to connect with people using video. So they're actually becoming a little bit of technology consultants and helping people connect that way. And then the final is people just like to have conversations. And what I'm hearing also is that, you know, especially older people are feeling very isolated. And so a phone call, a video chat tends to go a little longer than maybe we would want it to as a person making the call. And yet we understand that they're not getting that on a regular basis like they would before COVID-19. So I always think about it this way: through all of this, if you've got the time and you invested in that, think about the impression it leaves with that person you spoke with. Now, I want to be clear about communication as well. As much as technology is fantastic and we can do short videos and we can, you know, mass send out short videos, they're not the same. And I'm going to plant that seed. I was going to bring this into the slide and I just didn't have time to do it. Yesterday, I got an example of that, where it was someone I kind of know who sent a video out, and the video was about, you know, this time and what's happening, and it was really impersonal, and I really didn't like it. Versus one of the financial planners I work with made a phone call to me yesterday just to check in. You know, how are you doing? To me, that's the power, and so that's really where communication is such a powerful piece of this. The other is, you know, social and people habits around distancing and safety. I did have to go to our pharmacy 2 days ago, and I don't know if they've done that where you're at in the world. In the pharmacy, when I was going up to pay for what I had purchased, they had little boxes taped to the floor 6 feet apart, or what would that be, about 2.5 meters apart. And they asked that we all stand in those boxes. So it's just, it's different. It's different for us. And what are the habits you could be creating around that? You know, one of the things they talk about in stopping the spread is, you know, washing your hands with soap and hot water multiple times a day. You know, what are the habits that maybe you didn't have at a high level that you could be creating right now to keep you safe? And then the last thing I think we have to always remember in all of this is you still have to have some fun, right? So what could you do? What are the things that you could do to still have fun? I'm seeing things using platforms like Zoom, this platform, or WhatsApp video, FaceTime, those types of things where families who can't physically be together set up, you know, games, and they're playing some card game when they're doing it all over video. People doing happy hours where, and I've been part of that with one of the groups I work with, where everyone gets into a space like this at 5 p.m. at night and they have their happy hour cocktail and they're just talking about whatever's going on. There's actually some fun resources out there too that you might do where you could create a bingo game and the squares are squares that pertain to right now. So like there's all kinds of cool stuff that way. And the key, I think, for many of us, and I know I'm guilty of this because I'm not a fun focused type of person, is that we have to be conscious about it and figure out ways to have fun, even though the way we maybe normally have fun is not available to us right now. So what are those things that you could do? And here's the thing I think about in all of this. If I was to create that habit right now, I believe that when we come over to the other side of this pandemic, the way we've done business leading into it is going to be different. And I don't know what different will look like. I know it will be different. And so in this time, what you're looking at and creating from a habit perspective will probably serve you really well in your business and in your personal relationships as we come through it. So it's just staying in the game and being curious about it. And then that last one really is that financial habit, that financial health habit. This is a big one. And regardless of where you scored yourself, when we talked about that in those 7 areas, here's the advice I could give you if you haven't done it already, is take a look at everything you spend money on right now and cut out, like eliminate everything that's unnecessary, everything that's unnecessary. And the reason for that is we don't know how long this will last. We also don't know what the economic impact on a global perspective will be. And so, you know, you're more tuned in your part of the world to that than I am from where I am. And yet I know how poor I think things are going to be here as we move through this, you know, so I'm just preparing for the worst. And by worst, I'm thinking even potentially worse than the crisis of 2008 through 2011. So, so as much as you can conserve your money and cut down everything that's unnecessary from an expense perspective, the better. One of the things you might think about in your business, and this would be a great rule of thumb moving through this and beyond, is what I'll call the 30-30-40 rule. And that is 30% of any income that you generate, a maximum of 30% can be used for your cost of living to take care of you, yourself, your family, your housing, all of that. 30% for your business, like how to run your business, and then 40% that you're keeping for everything else. So it's your net profit at that. And so the goal is to get it there. Now, for most of us, and I know this varies from market to market and country to country, a lot of our estate agents spend way too much money running their businesses, and they're not holding every dollar that they're spending accountable to a high return. Our rule of thumb is this: if for every $1 I spend in US, I expect a 4-time return. So if I'm investing in leads for my business, for every dollar I invest, I expect $4 to come back. And if I can't have $4 come back, I shouldn't be spending it on that. So it's a return on investment of a 4 to 1, basically. So that may be a rule to think about as you're looking at your expenses and where that looks like, what that looks like in your life. And then the last one is, I wanted to hit this at about the 45-minute past the hour mark so we can have time for some questions, is the physical health habit. And I think with that, you know, that can be such a key piece to all of this right now. Like, where are you at physically? You know, I'm being very careful and in what I'm reading and what I'm watching right now from the news sources about COVID-19 and its impact on us physically. The one thing I can share, when I say careful, I'm getting my news from 2 sources: the World Health Organization, WHO, and the CDC here in the United States, and that's the Center for Disease Control. So it's a government entity, and that's where I'm getting my information from. Because what I've discovered is there's so much that's not correct. There's so much that's incorrect and actually wrong, at least from what I can gather right now. The one thing I do know, though, is that the stronger you are physically, that if you're exposed to the virus, the stronger opportunity you have to fight it off and have it not be as impactful on your physical health, which leads to death, unfortunately, for many people. So you've got to take care of your physical health habit. Now, here's the challenge. if the way you've done your day has changed, right? So we're shelter at home. We're safer at home. My gym that I go to and I work out with a trainer 3 days a week, that's closed. I can go outside, and yet it's limited because they don't want us interacting with people. So what do you do from a physical health standpoint during this time? How are you eating based on what's available from a food perspective? And then really, what can you do from a physical standpoint to make certain that you're staying active? Again, I think one of the beauties of technology today is there's a lot of information out there that's free on ways to do physical activity in your, in a room in your house, so that you can still get that. And so what are you doing from a regular basis that way? What traditions are you creating for yourself on a daily basis there so that you're taking care of yourself so you're strongest? Hydration is a key, nutrition is a key, and then also what you're doing from a physical health standpoint is going to be key as well. So those are the five, really: internal habits, external habits, what we're doing with people, our financial habits, and then physical health habits themselves. And really, I would just share this, and I'm going to, let's see, I think that was my last slide. Yes, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So let me see if I can get that to happen. There we go. Just bring everybody back so where I can see you. And so the question is, what is it that you're going to choose to do in this time, or maybe that you've done already? And what I'd love to do is just open up the meeting to anyone with questions, thoughts, comments, or anything you've discovered that you'd like to share. So, and if you want to do that, just unmute yourself. You can hit the little microphone on the bottom left corner of your screen, or the space bar, and just hold it down, and that'll unmute you as well. And Slavisa, I'll just open it back up if you'd like to be part of that.
Yes, thank you, Darren. Thank you for this beautiful presentation. And what I would at first like to greet once more the people that are attending now. And we have, if I counted well, about people from about 5 countries, from Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, United States, and Ukraine. As a majority are the people from Serbia, we treat ourselves as a host for this webinar. I will use the opportunity at first to greet the guests from the other countries. At first, my friend Artur Ohanesian from Ukraine. Hello, Artur. Thank you for being the part of this. Rajraj Pal. Yeah, Rajraj Pal, who is here. And I use the opportunity to invite all the people for tomorrow's webinar of Rajraj Pal. And here is also Jacqueline from United States. Hello, Jacqueline. Our friend Leanne Dune. And of course, our Alicia Madsen. So thank you for being the part of this. After this greet, I will come back to the topic that we are considering now. We are now in some kind of problem, big kind of problem. And you told us that you were previously in some previous crisis left without anything. So you are in position, and when any problem is here and passing, in position to feel disappointed, to feel fail. And you were speaking about 4 P's, where positive is first step, purposeful, powerful, and etc. But
present tense,
yeah. But to me, it looks always where we are when we are in trouble. The biggest gap is from being disappointed, feeling failed, to jump to being positive. What suggestion? What helps you to come out from being failed to being positive?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking it. Here's what happened. So in 2008, I had a construction company that we were building anywhere from 70 to 80 homes a year. I had a business partner who was running that, and I was running our real estate brokerage companies. And in April of 2008, he called me one day and he said, you thought things were going well. They're not. We owe our bank $2 million. There's no assets to cover that debt. And I'm leaving for Costa Rica. I'm leaving the country. And he left. And the one thing I always share with people is that with banks that lend money, they're your best friend when times are good. The minute times change, like now, they slam, they come down so hard. And that's what they did. And I was the only one. I'd personally guaranteed all those loans. And so it was me. And it got so bad that there were days I didn't want to get out of bed. It was depressing. I mean, because my phone would start ringing, at 7 a.m. with people demanding money. And I had a coach though that I was working with at that time, and I finally came clean with her. I told her what was happening because our ego doesn't let us talk about failure very often because that's not who you're supposed to be. And when I finally told her what was really going on, she said this to me. She goes, Darren, tell me, what do you do first thing in the morning? And I go, well, I get up, I go make coffee, I get the paper. She goes, no, before that. I said, I get up, I go make coffee. She goes, no, before that. And I said, I open my eyes, and she goes, yes. She goes, so tomorrow, here's what I want you to do. The first thing, when you open your eyes, before you do anything else, I'd like for you to think about the 5 things you're grateful for in your life. And I'm going, and her name was Kim. And I go, Kim, you don't get what my world looks like right now. My world is just off, and she goes, no, I get it. She goes, but let's just do this. And I learned a word from her during that time that I worked with her. And she said, let's just experiment with this. And I love the word experiment now. I didn't at that moment because I thought, okay, well, an experiment can work. An experiment could not work. And either way, it's okay because it's an experiment. And she goes, let's just experiment with this. And really, I had nothing to lose because I was so depressed. If there's anything that could help me, I thought I was open to it. And in that case, I was. And so we began this exercise where first thing in the morning, I would think of the 5 things I'm grateful for. And then I was working with her on journaling. And since 2007, I've been journaling on a daily basis. And she said, and then I want you to do this twice through the day. Thank you, Jacqueline. I see you've got yours there too. Twice through the day, I'd like for you to journal 5 things you're grateful for in that moment. And then at the end of the day, before you go to sleep, the last thing before you close your eyes, think about the 5 things you're grateful for in that moment. And so it's a simple gratitude exercise. And I'm going, come on, it can't be so simple. You don't know what my life looks like. And she goes, no, she goes, let's just experiment with this. I'll tell you, that exercise saved me. That exercise saved me. And again, it sounds so simple. Here's what starts to happen though. Well, it's fun because I got my journals. Actually, in one of the cabinets right behind me, I keep all my journals. And if I go back to that time and look at what I was writing, it was like, I'm grateful for my cat. I'm grateful for good coffee. It's just these, and yet what that started to do, and I noticed that it started changing who I was, because I was coming from an energy of gratitude. Really what it is I started focusing on things I was grateful for, and I started seeing more. And it really pulled me through. And the thing I'll share, and I've done this a couple times for groups. I went from, before I was age 40, my net worth was over $1 million. So I was a quote unquote millionaire, and I lost it all. That was, that was when my early 40s, I lost everything to a point now in less time that it took me to get there. I've built that back and double. So my net worth is double what it was going into that. And it's different now. It's not leveraged with all kinds of debt. There's not loans and mortgages, and there's some that make sense, but it's nowhere near what I had before. And I think that the key to that is that exercise around gratitude is such a powerful one, because it will change whatever's going on in your world that's not what you want to what you truly desire by focusing on what you're grateful for. So it's a long answer, and yet I think it's a great lesson. So I'm grateful that you guys let me share that with you.
Well, it's coming more from a perspective of lack. And so it creates that pyramid shift in your mind by doing what is a consistent, regular, and formed exercise that creates then that shift between hand and mind and soul. And so, but you're coming from a perspective of lack when you're feeling failure, fear, and it shifts that mind perspective into what is grateful, full, and abundant. And you may not have it at that moment while you're doing your exercise in gratitude, but the shift in your mind when the hand, mind, and physical actually come together actually creates that shift. So you're actually already living into abundance.
And I can say absolutely right. That's what happens. You know, and again, I think for many of us, it sounds too simple.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful exercise.
Absolutely powerful.
Yeah.
Game changer.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you for that. And,
Game and
so
life changer, and really
have
life changer too, I would say, because there were people, unfortunately, that I was friends with during that time that didn't think that, they thought the only option they had was to kill themselves, and they committed suicide.
Yep.
And I mean, that's tragic when that happens, when you know, there's other options, and exercises like this could make the big difference. So yeah, thank you.
So it really does matter what we do immediately from opening our eyes in the morning. The simple things we do from opening our eyes in the morning make the difference on the rest of the day. Anybody else?
Yeah, you know what, Slavisha, I was going to say,
Hello, Alicia.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Excellent. I was going to say, you know, the attitude of gratitude and having the right mindset, I mean, both of them are really dead on. And now in this challenging times, knowing that it's going to get worse, I think we do have to be that pillar of hope for others. So it does start with ourselves, you know, making sure that we can pump up ourselves so that we can help pump up others. And we're doing the same thing for our Women's Council folks, is so many people are now not getting a lot of sales, you know, they're hurting dramatically. And now we start thinking, okay, how can we help them still during these challenging situations, still feed their minds with education, knowledge, and make it fun. So there's some cool, fun things that we're doing in real estate to remind people to interact. So I'll give you a quick example. We're doing a webinar watch party where we're encouraging everybody around the world even to watch and enjoy together as we learn. There's also, we're doing this, it's going to be kind of cool. They're calling it a membership cocktail party. And we're all dressing up as if we're going to a formal cocktail party. And it's all virtual, but kind of changing and evolving the way we do things and keeping people excited, because for me, I get excited because no matter what, anytime there's a downturn, there's also going to be an upturn. And so reminding people that there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly right.
Thank you very much, Alicia. You are one of the persons that we used to give us good advice in how to be more powerful and motivated to do anything. As a matter of fact, it happens already. Some things are changing, and the people that have material, I would say it like that, people that have material in themselves, that they are eager to do something better, they already do some differences. They already, the people are that are interested to improve themselves are going to webinars, not looking to reality shows or TV shows. You know, they are going to attend webinars. So the other people are making more social meetings because they don't have to plan to go to spend 40 minutes or half an hour or more than that to go to the other place and see the friend. You just open the computer. And I will emphasize that Raj told me some evening, they have a habit in the evening. Raj, are you here?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think,
what are you doing in the evening?
Well, it's two things. You know, one, you connecting all the industry professionals that you've not talked to in a long time. And you know something, I've suddenly said I'm drinking a lot more lately because there's a happy hour every night. But the good part is we are interacting with people constantly. Every day, Jacqueline is laughing because we were drinking last evening together. She was in Boston, I was in New York. So you're sitting home, so you don't have to worry about drinking and driving. So you'll end up drinking even more. But,
they did say alcohol sales are on the uptick.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh man.
One industry is doing good, but the good part is we're connecting with each other. We're talking to each other more. We're supporting each other more. We're giving positive thoughts to each other. And when you end up with that call, it's actually better than a normal day, because when you're in the office all day, you walk out stressed and problems and everything. You're trying to, I got to do this, I got to do that. This way, we are doing actually a lot better. I'm getting more work done sitting at home. I'm connecting with more people right now. And I think that is very positive. And, you know, as Darren mentioned earlier, he starts his day with a meditation. I end my day with meditation. I have meditation music in my room, next to my bed. So, before I go to sleep, I just switch on that music and I go in a different zone. And when I go into that zone, you're relaxing, you're sleeping better, and you're sleeping with no problems in your mind almost.
Thank you very much, Raj. That's a beautiful. And it seems that more empathy is among the people
Absolutely.
now. When we realize that there are people, elder people particularly, but some other people around us that are in need, there are more people that are trying to help them. And that's very beautiful habit that I think it becomes some habit, and I believe it will last till these problems lasting, and it will be wonderful if we keep that habit. Now we have a possibility to rethink, as I said in the beginning of this, what was the purpose of this today's webinar, to rethink all the possibilities. Now Darren helped us with emphasizing what are the parts and what habits we should think about very carefully and try to build the best one of this. The time we have now unintentionally to think about is very great. And I hope we will use it to improve ourselves, to make us better. Anybody else?
I would like to ask you a question, Darren.
Sure.
Hello. Miroslav Cvetkovic from Serbia also. Great lecture, great breakout session. Thank you. Thank you also for this Ziegler's YouTube, what you've sent just. Thank you, very useful. I would like to ask you about the mindset changes. How often do you train your team? How often do you discuss it? How often do you have with your team meetings and Zoom sessions like this?
So we've changed what we had been doing. We're doing a mindset session at 9 a.m. Monday through Saturday right now.
Every day?
Every day, Monday through Saturday. Sundays we're not, but Monday through Saturday we are. So 9 a.m. we call them Power Up. And I'm leading a session on mindset, and it's a different topic each day with an exercise of focus, just kind of based on what's happening. So I'm getting a sense of where people are emotionally, and that's really where the message that'll come. And then at 4:30 each day, at the end of each day, Monday through Saturday, right now we're just calling it town hall, and that's a place to come with questions. And then also we do an exercise called Tell Me Something Good. So as we wrap that out each day, Monday through Saturday, it's a Zoom meeting like this. It's just tell me something good.
How long do they last? How long do they last, the meetings?
Yeah, 15 minutes.
15 minutes,
Those are 15. Yeah, and then what we're doing right now is because we're assuming that most of our agents, aren't able to be
generating at that time, or should be, okay.
So we do a training session midday at 1 p.m. every day on some piece of technology in our company or some other skill build. So it's mindset in the morning, skill build midday, mindset at the end of the day. And we're doing that 6 days a week. This is our third week. We're just finishing our third week of doing that. And we'll see what happens. Here's what I'm seeing. Some are staying engaged. About a third of my company is staying engaged. 2/3 have checked out, and we're reaching out to them with phone calls, and they, this is going to sound really harsh. I think for some, this was an excuse to be knocked out of the business, to say, you know what, I was trying to make it in real estate, and that COVID-19, that's what took me out. I don't buy that as an excuse. I think they have great opportunities to be in it, and they're choosing to step away, and it's sad. Yet it's reality, I think, for some. We're trying to save them. They have to show up though, and
it will ultimately add up to 80-20 rule.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It happened the last time. I mean, I saw that then as well. And so it's a reminder of that. And yet I want to make sure our agents have all the tools they need to succeed if they choose to stay in the game. And that's really what we're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for all the answers. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much, everybody. Our time is up, and I hope you enjoyed this webinar. At the end of this, I will thanks again to Darren. Darren, thank you very much for helping us speaking about this topic. I will remind you that I will continue with the webinars. We already agreed about the next one. The speaker for the next one webinar is among us today. It's Rajesh Pal. So at Tuesday, at the same time, we will speak about the next interesting topic of in this series of webinars. And we will continue doing that. So, so far I have the people that are accepting my invitation to speak about some topics. It's dedicated particularly to this area of the world, but actually it is visible and possible to attend from everywhere in the world. As last time we have people from 9 countries, today from 5 countries. So I hope people will like, and we will help to improve our skills or ability to hit the market and the life after this pass. On the end, I will also remind you that those people that are not here at the September 24 to 26, we will have the our conference Learn to Succeed, which was usually organized in April, but this 5th conference Learn to Succeed is will be unfortunately moved to September. But one of the speakers at that conference will be Darren Kittleson, and we will welcome him in Belgrade, show him the beauty of Belgrade, and hear from him, have the opportunity to hear from him some other things and lessons that we could get. Thank you, everybody. See you in next
when,
webinar.
Slavisha, when?
Tuesday.
The same time. I said Tuesday, 5 o'clock afternoon Belgrade time.
11 o'clock Eastern American.
That's,
It would be, yes.
everybody will calculate his time, but at the same time as today. We keep the time, just change the days.
Great
Thank
seeing
you very much.
everyone.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.
I would like to be there.
As well. Bye.
Bye.